We are now at the point in the chapter where we have laid the chemistry foundations, and we're going to transition to talk about the importance of energy in ecosystems, because all organisms need energy. Cells use energy for so many of their essential functions, including creating important substances, moving materials around the cell or organism, digesting food, breaking down and expelling waste, moving the organism itself, generating new cells, and reproducing, and so much more. So, how do organisms get that energy? Well, there are, of course, many different sources of energy in the natural world, including light or solar energy, geothermal or heat energy, chemical energy, sound energy, gravitational energy, nuclear energy. And all of these different types of energy can be divided. There are, of course, two major categories: potential energy and kinetic energy. Potential energy is energy that is stored, while kinetic energy is energy that is actively in motion. Examples of potential energy in nature include chemical energy, gravitational energy, and nuclear energy. All of these represent different ways that energy can be stored. Examples of kinetic energy are solar energy, heat energy, and sound energy. These types of energy are all actively in motion. Light waves travel, sound waves travel, heat radiates. And this activity form of energy is what organisms can use to do work, to create substances, to transport substances, to break them down, to reproduce. A major part of what we call in organisms metabolism is converting between kinetic and potential energy. Because energy is not permanently in one form or another. For example, this picture of water falling over the edge of a dam shows how gravitational potential energy, that is, the potential energy that an object has to fall towards the gravitational center of the Earth, can be converted into kinetic energy. When the water is at the top, it only has the potential to fall. And then when it goes over the edge, that stored energy gets transformed into the energy of motion, kinetic energy. Of course, that particular example of energy conversion is not one that can be utilized by living organisms. Instead, living organisms get their energy through conversions that take place on a microscopic molecular level, namely by converting chemical potential energy, the energy stored in electrons that make up the chemical bonds within molecules, by breaking those bonds and moving those electrons and their associated energy around. In total, all of the chemical reactions and energy conversions occurring in a living organism's cells is referred to as metabolism. In biology, metabolism is not a word that describes how fast or how slow you digest things, like we use it in colloquial language. It's the complete collection of chemical activity in cells. Part of that is breaking a molecule down, causing energy to be released that can be used for the organism's functions. And this part of metabolism is considered catabolism. The other part is building molecules up from smaller pieces, creating important substances. And this requires energy to be invested. This is called anabolism. So in metabolism, there is this give and take between catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism breaks down molecules and releases their chemical potential energy so it can be converted into kinetic energy. Anabolism takes energy and uses it to build up important molecules that living things need. One very important fact about energy conversions that it is going to come back to us shortly when we talk about food chains and food webs is that no chemical reaction, no energy conversion is 100% efficient, meaning that when energy gets transformed from one form into another, not 100% of it makes it into the final form because some small percentage of that energy is lost in the form of heat. Think about this in the context of a vehicle's engine. The engine combusts fossil fuels and converts them into the kinetic energy needed to rotate the wheels and move the car. But when the car is running, the engine gets hot. Why does this happen? because those conversions are leaky and not 100% of the chemical energy in the gasoline is making it to the desired purpose of propelling the vehicle. This is also true of energy conversions in living organisms. Put your hand on your forehead. Does it feel warm? It certainly does compared to if you put your hand on your desk or your table or the floor or something that is not alive. Your forehead is warm for the same reason that a car engine gets warmth, which is that the billions of chemical reactions happening inside of your body are converting stored chemical energy into kinetic energy to allow you to function. But those reactions are leaky and they are giving off heat, and that heat just bleeds into the environment. In terms of usable energy, that heat is lost to you and to every organism because they are similarly generating heat in this manner. Plants, animals, fungi, bacteria all experience these inefficient energy conversions that lose heat back into the environment. Because all living things are part of what we call an open energy system. An open energy system is a system where energy is exchanged between entities within the system and the environment. Energy flows into living things from the environment, and it flows out of living things back into the environment in a continuous cycle, ultimately, through all of the new energy coming into the system of the Earth is from the sun. This means that virtually all living organisms, not just plants, get their energy from the sun. We humans can ultimately trace our energy back to the source of sun. Sure, we get our energy by consuming foods, but where does the energy stored with that food come from? It's a thought exercise to prove this to yourself. Consider what you have had for breakfast this morning. If you had an apple, the apple comes from an apple tree, which derives the energy to create the apple from the sun. If you had toast or cereal, the same is true for the wheat and the grain that was used to make those things. The milk on the cereal or other dairy products like yogurt come from cows, and cows consume grasses or corn or grains that once again were grown powered by the energy of the sun. If you ate eggs, which came from a chicken, that chicken probably ate a feed that was made with plant products. And again, we can see how the energy of the egg is traced back to the sun. All of our energy as living organisms is traced back to the sun, but for some of us, like animals, including humans, that energy is just a few more steps removed and has to undergo more conversions. We have specific terms that are used to describe different types of organisms based on how near or removed their energy gathering process is from that ultimate energy source. Autotrophs are organisms that produce their own energy. While there are some rare exceptions, most do this through a process called photosynthesis, in which they capture the energy of sunlight, and these are specifically referred to as photoautotrophs. The term autotroph literally means self feeding. The prefix auto means self. For example, an automatic transmission, also known as a stick shift, is a car where you have to change the gear yourself. Troph is a root word that means food or nutrition. So members of this autotroph group include all plants, all algae, and certain types of bacteria called cyanobacteria. We mentioned these previously in Chapter 1 in reference to being the perpetrators of the great oxygenation event in the Earth's history. The other classification for organisms based on their means of energy production is heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are not capable of photosynthesis, so they can't produce their own energy. Instead, they get their energy by eating other organisms, be that plants, animals, or even the matter of dead organisms. The name heterotroph literally means fed by others, with the prefix hetero meaning other, and the root word troph again meaning food or nutrition. And organisms that fall into this category include all animals, all fungi, as well as most bacteria and other microscopic organisms called protists. So autotrophs perform photosynthesis and heterotrophs eat, but ultimately heterotrophs too are sustained by sunlight energy, not directly. In the next section, we are going to look at an overview of the processes that each of these categories of organisms use to get their energy, and that will be photosynthesis and cellular respiration.